So you've built the Vault AIS system, which stands for Asset Investment Strategy, and the best of all three, the best investment, the best asset, the best strategy, based on your own financial history. What was the moment that made you realize that traditional wealth advice wasn't working for you?
Well, it's emotional for me because didn't know we were going to jump right into this right out of the gate, but it applies to why I created Vault AIS and why Garrett Gunderson and I are partnering again today after 25 years of knowing each other. I grew up here in St. George, Southern Utah, riding dirt bikes, and I love dirt bikes. I worked at the local Yamaha shop from 7th grade through my first year of college, and remember in 7th grade, I was making $2.25 an hour sweeping floors and washing bikes and emptying trash cans, but it's how I paid for things that I wanted for, clothes for school and parts for motorcycles, definitely, and dating girls. Those are probably my 3 top things that I was going after at that time. But, you contrast that college, I responded to an ad to sell working in the motorcycle shops all those years, 3 here in Southern Utah. I met my wife, Wendy. We got engaged. And we quickly had 2 kids, Kennedy and Caden. Some emotion around our kids because our daughter just gave birth to our 2nd grandchild.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. 2 weeks ago, a little girl. I'd love to talk about that. But I responded to this ad to sell cell phones, and I hadn't come from money. And my first 30 days in 1993, so I'm 22 years old. It's 1993. I made $20,000 in 30 days selling cell phones. So it's equivalent to about $80,000 today in today's dollars with inflation. So I'm looking at this paycheck, $20,000. I'm a W-2 employee. I was in sales. And I stopped going to college, and I kept selling cell phones, making no less than that amount of money every single month, which is 20 times what I was making at the Yamaha shop growing up. And so my wife and I get married. We have our 2 kids, Kennedy and Caden, and I feel like I'm living the American dream. I'm making all this money at such a young age, and we're investing in real estate. I remember having a share in a convenience store down in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we made a lot of money and we lost a lot of money. So I decided to get into the financial services industry in 2000. And when I got into the financial services industry, that's when I met Garrett Gunderson. I also met Ray Hooper and Les McGuire. Garrett and I met them together. And we started studying about money and finance, and we were marketing together. We created a business name and a business entity together, but we were just marketing together. One day, Les came to me and he said, "Hey, I've got this investment opportunity with Investor Guy. I think you may want to take a look at it." I trust Les. This was 2006. This is years after our partnership had started. I do my due diligence. I meet with Investor Guy, and he promises to pay me 5% a month on my cash.
A month?
A month.
Ooh.
He was doing hard money lending with real estate. And this was 2005, 2006, 2007. So I give him $50,000. You know where this is headed.
Yep.
I'm sure the audience knows where this is headed too, but I give him $50,000, and at 5% a month, I'm getting $2,500 a month checks. So I think I'll give him another $250,000. So now I've got $300,000 at 5% a month, and the checks kept coming. So I give him another $500,000. I've got $800,000 with Investor Guy. And it doesn't stop there. I introduce him to some of my clients. And next thing you know, we have over $10 million with Investor Guy. And the checks kept coming until August of 2007, no checks. And September, no checks. And I'm starting to freak the fuck out. We've got over $10 million. I've got over $4 million of my own cash in there. And I'm calling Investor Guy, and he's not returning my calls. He's not even picking up. That's August, September, October, November, December 2007. No checks, no nothing. And during that time, I get a phone call, and on the other end, I hear, "This is Special Agent Mark Jones from the FBI. We understand you have investment dealings with Investor Guy. We need to talk." I'm not kidding you, Justin. I signed a deal with. I ended up signing a deal with the feds, and I wore a wire for the FBI. Whoa! And I wanted to find out where all that money went, not only for myself but for all of my clients.
Right.
Had family members involved in this investment opportunity, but it was too late. All the money was completely gone. I was a mess. This was the end of 2007, 2008, 2009. I was a complete asshole to everyone around me, including my wife and kids. Garrett watched me go through all of this. I was drinking excessively. It was October 2010 when there was a knock on my front door, and I opened it up. It was early in the morning. It was my wife's family, and I saw 2 U-Haul trucks backing up into the driveway of our home, and they said, "Hey, we're here to move Wendy and the kids out." And I knew I wasn't healthy to be around. I ended up slamming the door in their face, but the reality of that is I found myself alone on the bathroom floor 12 hours later, completely alone in our home, facing all the decisions that I'd made in my life that led to that point of being on the bathroom floor. And I was so distraught that I loaded a round in a Ruger P89 pistol and pressed it up against the roof of my mouth with my finger on the trigger. And I'll never forget the rush that came over my body. And I carefully set the gun down. And I promised to God and myself that I would extract the lessons that led to putting that gun in my mouth and apply them in my life and to share them with as many people as I possibly could. Hence, these books right here. Mm-hmm. Hence, Justin, you and I right now sharing this message. And the other various platforms that I'm able to share this message with. So I did exactly that. I went to work. I first knew that I had to get healthy myself before I could even consider being back with my family. And when my wife left me, it wasn't, "Hey, I want a divorce." It's, "Hey, you're not healthy to be around." And I knew it. Our kids were young at the time. And 45 days later, I moved back in with my wife and kids. And that's when AIS was born. Number one asset, number one investment, number one strategy. I sat down with Garrett Gunderson, and he said, "Michael, you can choose to leverage your past to create moving forward." And so I did exactly that. And I knew that some of the biggest financial institutions are banks. Mm. And banks have an agenda, and there's no conspiracy around it, right? Oh, there may be some conspiracy, but what I'm about to talk about, there's not. If you think about it, if you think about every product and service that a bank manufactures, they want our money. They want our money on a regular basis. They want to hold on to our money for as long as possible. And when it comes time for us to go and get our money, they want to pay it back to us as slow as possible. So every product and service that a financial institution manufactures meets that agenda. Now, we get a benefit from that, but if that's the best thing for them and they're teaching us to do one thing and they're doing something different than what they're teaching us to do, because they're teaching us to give them their money, give them our money. They're teaching us to let them hold on to it for as long as possible, not touch it. And so what banks do with our money is they turn it over and over and over. Yep. And they're making a spread on that interest rate over and over and over. It's called fractional reserve banking. So if it's good for them, why isn't it good for us? You see, I wasn't clear about risk in my life. I thought I was investing with Investor Guy, but I was gambling. Because I was relinquishing control of my cash in an area where I had no knowledge, no experience, or no expertise, no human life value. Garrett Gunderson calls it investor DNA. Yep. What is your investor DNA? Do you know what your investor DNA is? For me, it's human life value. In finance and money, there's a property value balance sheet where you have assets and you have liabilities. Assets minus liabilities is the equity in your property value balance sheet. But we all have a human life value balance sheet also, where there's assets and liabilities on our human life value balance sheet. I had lost sight of my human life value balance sheet. I wasn't even thinking about it when I put that gun in my mouth. I felt worthless because I had lost all my financial assets in my life. In fact, it was at a negative. So because it was at a negative and I wasn't thinking about my human life value balance sheet, I felt worthless, of no worth. Yeah. Because I'd tied up my whole self-worth in money from a young age, making money at Cellular One, selling cell phones and getting involved in business deals and getting involved in the financial services industry. Well, what happened when I relinquished control to investor guys, I got bored. I was getting bored in my business. I wasn't growing. I wasn't stimulating myself. I wasn't continuing to learn. And I stopped believing in myself. So I believed in somebody else versus myself, my own human life value. And so I meet with clients today. Garrett and I wrote these books. And I want to talk about the money. I want to talk about the banks. I want to talk about their financial institutions. I want to help clients bring back control of this in their life and start believing in themselves again.
Right.
And we do that by first focusing on the human life value balance sheet, education, experiences, relationships. Relationships are a line item on the human life value balance sheet. Justin, that's why you and I are sitting here today.
Right.
Garrett introduced me to Lifebook in 2014. I met your mom and dad. Is it Missy? John and Missy? Yeah, I met John and Missy, back in 2014, and then Garrett and you and Garrett had some experiences together, and then Garrett said, "Hey, Justin, you ought to talk to Michael." So relationships are a line item on the human life value balance sheet. Human life value is the source and creator of all property value. It first takes this in order to create this. So now it's clear to me today that I'm going to spend more time looking at my assets and my liabilities on my human life value balance sheet, because I have full faith and knowledge knowing that that's going to create more property value in my life.
Right.
And then what would the Rockefellers do? We're going to look at both in our estate planning, look at not only property value, but the more important intrinsic self-worth items of the human life value, and bring them together to be able to pass that on as a true legacy. So that point for me, back to your original question after all that point for me, when I stuck a gun in my mouth, was a turning point in my life. And I'm so happy I'm here, because I've had endless experiences since then with my family. 45 days later, I moved back in with my wife and kids. And I've been able to earn back all that cash that I lost applying what Garrett and I have written in these books and helping people have this in their own life.
Well, that was super powerful. Thank you for sharing. So let's talk a little bit about human life value. I think it's quite interesting, because I just learned how to read a balance sheet. I'm doing this Wharton private equity investing course thing online, and assets minus liabilities equals equity or debt. What are some of the liabilities on a human life value balance sheet? What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. I think at the core level, a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. It could be habits in our life that are destructive, things that take away from us. For me, my own life, I stopped growing. I stopped believing in myself. I stopped seeing myself as the solution. Low self-worth would be a liability, a mindset of, again, in my own life, a mindset of, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. Shame, guilt, fear, doubt, if it overcomes us, destructive habits of alcoholism, drugs, anything destructive that would take away.
Gotcha. So assets are relationships, experiences, skills, things like this, and it's so something interesting about this is that a lot of these are intangible, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't feel or look at my experiences, but they were there. I know that they have happened, and I can imagine them sort of and relive them, I guess. I was just talking with Dr. Donnie Swarden. She's this nutraceutical kind of natural medicine doctor, and she basically explained that your mind doesn't really know what is real and what is fake. If you imagine something so vividly, your brain thinks it is happening.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, for me at least, is why experiences are so valuable, because I can relive them almost molecularly. If you think about it just happened then. You thought of a very traumatic and sad experience, and it showed up on your body, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing with imagining a very happy moment. You get happy and all cuddly and fuzzy and things like this. So all of that to say, You touched on a little bit there in I guess the intangible sort of a liability side, your beliefs. Your beliefs about money are so important. My talk about Garrett was mostly about financial beliefs and how a lot of people are super, super backwards in this sort of category of their life. Two questions. Number one, why are your beliefs about finance important? And two, if you have negative beliefs, how do you change those?
Yeah. Great questions. From a young age in my life, I didn't come from money. I don't know where the actual belief came from. I think it just was my circumstances and my parents and just my environment growing up. But again, Cycletown Yamaha was the motorcycle shop right here in St. George, 7th grade, $2.25 an hour. And working part-time and going to school in 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way through till I was a senior in college allowed me to pay for these things that I wanted in my life. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a sense of purpose because I wasn't finding that somewhere else. And so I had an identity tied up around that at a young age. Yeah.
I heard this quote the other day. It's, if you don't know who you are, you become what you do. Right. And it's like a lot of people, this is so apparent today that the first question that a lot of people ask when they're meeting new people is, oh, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, who are you? You do accounting. You are an accountant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And a lot of people, I would guess some people even watching this have such negative beliefs about money, but more so negative beliefs about the people who have a lot of money.
Based on their own stories and experiences in life when they're making that judgment. Mm. Yeah.
So what would you say to someone watching this if they're like, well, if you have a lot of money, you steal and lie and cheat and you take from people and things like this, and what would you say to kind of maybe not disagree with them, but to show them a different perspective on something like this?
Byron Katie. Have you heard of Byron Katie, Loving What Is?
I don't think I have.
So thework.com, Byron Katie, she wrote a book called Loving What Is. She has other books out there, but on thework.com, she has a worksheet. And it's evolved in many ways for myself, but in 2010, when I made the commitment to extract the lessons, apply them in my life, and share them with as many other people as I can, one of the things that I was introduced to was the work by Byron Katie, and it's questioning your thoughts. So when I hear you say, someone says, oh, about this, about money, and they have these negative thoughts around it, and what would I say to them, or what could they do? Question your thoughts, question your stories, because the most powerful thing for me that I learned from Byron Katie is it true? How do you know that it's absolutely true? Is it true that they're an evil person because they have money, or whatever else you said around that? I don't remember everything, but that one thing is, are they evil because they have money? Is that true? I know a lot of people that are not evil that have a lot of money and do a lot of good. So do you, right? And there are people that have a lot of money that aren't good. But is that true? So I would encourage someone to question. I do this often, where I will, and I like doing it first thing in the morning, is I like to write. And I'll write my thoughts, and I'll question my thoughts. Is it true? I've also had the opportunity to do some medicine work experiences that allows me to go even deeper in that area and to get to a deep meditative state to ask myself, is it working? Is having those thoughts around whatever I'm thinking about, if it's, whatever it is it working or not working? Is it moving me closer to happiness or further away? It's not necessarily right or wrong. It's either working or not working, or moving me closer to happiness or further away. And that's what I use as my measurement now in life versus right or wrong, because of the work that I've done and the work that I'll continue to do. And I have something to say around that. I continue to do the work in all areas of my life to question my thoughts and to continue to progress and grow, because it fulfills me and it creates the most for those around me. And it also allows me to feel worthy of the results that I've already created in my life moving forward.
So it's a inoculation to imposter syndrome for you, right? That's really interesting. A lot of people don't take the time to question their thoughts or their beliefs. They don't think. 1, is this serving me? 2, is it true? 3, who put this in my head? Do they have my best interest at heart? Right?
Yeah.
And it's once you sort of, learn frameworks like these, it's like, oh, yeah, that should kind of be like a baseline sort of state of operation for people. We should always be questioning what is and is it true, right? Something that we talk about a lot on this show is having your life vision as a decision-making framework, right? Because you said, does it get me closer to happiness or does it not? It's not right or wrong. Nothing is ever right or wrong. It depends on the person, right? So if I'm, just as an example, like we were talking about, I want to be an investment banker or whatever. If I get a job opportunity that means that I can't go to college or something, it doesn't mean that saying no to that is right or wrong. I just probably should go to college so I can pursue what I would like to pursue. And it's the same thing if you want to be a really good salesman or something like this. If you get a job opportunity that means you can't go to college, you maybe could say yes to that because your life vision acts as a decision-making framework. Does it get me closer or does it get me further away from this sort of thing? So let's talk a little bit about the categories of a life vision, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them sort of interconnect between each other. There's there's what we say at Lifebook, at least, is there's 12 categories, and what we find a lot is that career and health and fitness tend to be very connected. If you have a high level of health and fitness, chances are it spills over into your career, right? Have you found that to be true? If you have a high level of health and fitness, do you perform better in your work?
Yes, 100%. Got up this morning at 5 o'clock, very clear about what I eat, protein within the first 20 minutes, little salt and electrolytes to get my body going and replenish itself. And then I have some steel cut oats and papaya to give me some energy. And I'm writing and I'm praying and I'm meditating. I'm having a conversation with God. And then I hit the gym and I work out and I sweat. Calories in, calories out. And I met my wife, Wendy, at the gym. And we work out together almost every morning. So yeah, not only the exercise part of it, but the food that we eat, because I want to feel good. Yeah. Because I now feel worthy of my life because of the work I've done. I know that I deserve to feel good. And what I put in my mouth and the way that I exercise my body and the way that I take care of my body allows me to feel good, and I feel worthy of that. And when I'm in that state and I'm doing that at a high level, not only am I feeling good, but I'm creating the most for those around me. And I love humanity. I love people. And I want to be able to have an experience like this with you, Justin, and to not only impact somebody else's life, but it impacts my life in a positive way too.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, there's a direct correlation.
Yeah. And like you said, you work out with your wife almost every day. There's a direct correlation between health and fitness and your love relationships, right? And me and my dad work out all the time, and there's a direct correlation between our social relationship and how much we work out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very important. And just as an example, health and fitness is one of the categories that if you do one little thing every day, whether it's, you wake up and you get protein in before like the first 30 minutes of your wake, or you just go on like a 15-minute walk, that compounds over time and you see massive changes in sometimes a prolonged period of time. But still, it's like not just, ooh, I look better. It's I feel better. And if you wake up and deliberately do hard things, it shows you, well, the rest of the day is pretty easy.
Yeah.
If I wake up and I do a cold plunge, or I wake up and I do
cold plunge too. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so scared of cold plunges, dude. I cannot deal with the cold.
It is not fun every single time. There's never not a time where I'm like, ooh, I'm excited to go cold plunge. No, it sucks every single time getting in. Before you get in, the mind game going into it. And then you get in there and you create this thermal barrier around you. It's a real thing. It happens. And it's not so bad when it's 48, 50 degrees, but when it gets down to 40, 39, there's a difference and you feel that. But when I get out of that cold plunge, I am alive and I'm electrified and I'm ready to tackle the day. And it's incredible. And so that's why we do it.
I've seen this chart where it's like I think it's like dopamine or serotonin or something like this, but it's basically our body's pharmacy, right? And it's a chart that's overlaid of another chart, and one of them is your brain and body's reaction to taking cocaine, and the other one is your brain and body's reaction to cold plunging. And they're literally the exact opposite. Cocaine is a big spike and then it goes down, and cold plunging is like a big dip and then it goes up.
Oh, wow.
Through the day. And there was a study where I guess a bunch of people that were addicted to cocaine tried ice baths, and they ended up becoming addicted to ice baths because they were like, oh, I see. If I delay this gratification, it lasts longer throughout the entire day, as opposed to a massive spike, and then I feel, for lack of a better term, like shit the entire day, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting how, regardless, very interesting. I would love to cold plunge, but I'm a little bit scared, and it makes me happy to hear that it's bad every time before you get in and while you're in there, but as soon as you're out, you're like, oh, this is what it's for.
The payoff is worth it.
Right.
But you have to be 100% committed. So we started it a couple of years ago. Our son, Caden, actually got us going. He started it first. He started leading in it, and my wife started doing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are doing it. I could do this, right? No problem. We have this outdoor 10 by 12 jacuzzi pool type thing, and if we don't heat it, it'll get down to 40, 38.
Ooh.
And during the winter here. And so that's when our son was starting it, and my wife would get in there, and I'm like, oh, I can do this. I kid you not, the first couple of times I got into like my knees. I'm like, oh, fully intending to go in and sit in there like they were for 3 minutes. But I hopped right back out because I wasn't committed.
Yep.
And then I did it a second time. I got down to my waist. I'm like, oh, and I jumped right back out. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is going on with me? Like, my wife, my son are doing this, and I'm not able to do this. And then finally, I made a decision where I'm going to do it no matter what. You get in, and yeah, it sucks, and it can sting, and it's a little burny, and then you get past that, and the thermal barrier kicks in, and you're okay. You're not going to die.
So delayed gratification is something, especially people in my generation with all these, social medias, and you're scrolling all day and it's just constant, brain chemicals pouring out everywhere. Delayed gratification is getting harder and harder to find. And I feel like, especially in the, I guess you could say sort of kind of like a standard operating procedure in finance, you put all your money into 401k or an IRA, and you delay that gratification for one day someday. I'm not sure if that's really the best way to go, and I assume you have a few opinions on this. But let me rephrase this. What is one choice or action that someone watching this could make that will better their financial future tomorrow or maybe in a year or something like this?
Yeah. The human life value balance sheet. We mentioned it. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Again, Garrett Gunderson talks about to really know your investor DNA. And for me, I break that down to the human life value balance sheet. Start writing down what some assets are on your human life value balance sheet. Start writing down some liabilities on there, and look at your history. Look at where you've been from and where you're at up until now in your life, and use that as the evidence as to what are some assets that you have. Ask some friends, ask some people that are close to you what they see in you as assets and liabilities. But the bottom line is to start doing some work. Be conscious of your human life value balance sheet and start doing some work in that area. Because when we do estate plan, when we think about the Rockefeller method, it's not just the money side of it, right? It's the more important intrinsic, like you said, intrinsic self-worth items of life, of your human life value balance sheet. Yeah. So that money's a blessing, not a curse. So the first thing that someone can do is to start being conscious of a human life value balance sheet and start writing down assets and liabilities and start raising your awareness around that in your life.
Very interesting. So I haven't read this entire book, but I've skimmed through it, and it's very, very interesting. It's what would the Rockefellers do? I would love to read your book after this, but it's really sort of it's a monumental shift in sort of mindset where you go, oh, I'm going to be the bank. I'm not going to go to the bank. I'm going to be the bank. And then I'm going to pass this down to my kids so they get left with, like you said, a blessing and not an inheritance or a curse that they don't know how to deal with, right? There's the example that everybody uses is the Vanderbilts, right? They passed down their money, and then it just eroded more so and more so until there was nothing left. Why didn't that happen with the Rockefellers or some of these other big families?
Yeah. There's one of the many books out there from the Rockefellers is the Rockefeller Letters, and there are letters from John D. Rockefeller to his sons, and those letters are powerful because they contain the human life value assets side of life, and I know one of the most powerful ways for any of us, any of the listeners, Justin, for you, anybody listening to this, one of the ways that you can find out what you stand for and what matters most to you is to write a last letter. Write a letter as if it's the last thing anyone's ever going to read from you. What do you want to say to them? Your wife and kids, your significant other people that mean, something to you. What would you want to say to them? If it was the last thing they read from you, what would you say to them? It's the foundation around the Rockefellers. It's why money has lasted for all these different generations and why it hasn't lasted for other people, because they're clear around what their human life value, assets, and liabilities are and how to continue to pass those on for future generations.
Gotcha. So in estate planning, these are called like soft documents, right? Like the family constitution and things like this, where you outline like you said, assets, liabilities, but not like tangible financial assets and liabilities. It's like, no, we do a family retreat every year.
Yeah.
These are some of the things that we do, right? That's super interesting. Is this reserved just for the super ultra mega rich, or can someone watching this sort of put this in place in their life today, tomorrow, this month, or soon?
Yes, everyone can have this in their life. Garrett gives the example in the book of he started with $50 a month. I started at $400 a month 25 years ago. So yeah, anybody can have this in their life. Certainly, we use the example of the Rockefellers because it's a name synonymous for legacy.
Yeah,
for generations and generations and generations. And when that becomes a reality in someone's life, like my clients and myself, anybody that I work with, anybody that has this in their life, we wake up more empowered on a daily basis. Like we're happier, we're healthier, I was driving here this morning and my assistant Lacey called me. She's been with me for 12 years. I met her when she was in her early 20s. She's got married. She's had 2 kids. She's built this family. We have this amazing relationship together. But her niece, that's just a year younger than her, called her yesterday, and her husband had passed away in a motorcycle accident.
Oh, no.
And she was married with 2 kids. And we all know of people that have died at an earlier age, accident or whatever else. We plan for both. This method is something to put in place if we're to live a really long life, but it's something that we can put in place if something were to happen, like my assistant's niece's husband just yesterday passed away in a tragic motorcycle accident. So plan for both, have them both in place. Unfortunately, they didn't have all that planning in place. Lacey had talked to him about it many times, and they'd procrastinated and didn't have it in place, unfortunately. But it's available to anyone out there.
Right. Yeah. So why do you think people, by the way, that's incredibly tragic, and I'm sorry about that, but why do you think that people tend to procrastinate with things like this, especially in their financial life? Because there's a quote that's like the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best day is today. It's the exact same thing with, putting money aside or starting something like this, right? Yeah. Why do you think people procrastinate like that?
2 big ones come to my mind. Number 1, they may not feel worthy of having that in their life. And number 2, they're not clear about what they really want in their life. And if they don't have that clarity around what they want, or they don't feel worthy, I think those are the 2 biggest reasons why, at a really deep core level, why people put it off and procrastinate. What do you think, Justin?
I mean, I would agree with you 100%. It's if someone doesn't have clarity on why they're either making all this money or putting away money, it's just, well, I want to see my numbers on this screen go up, right? But it's like, well, money is, or at least should be, a means to an end. You know what I mean? It's not just like I'm making all of this money so I can have more money.
Yeah, what does that money actually mean?
Exactly. When is it going to stop, right? Yeah. So if you're working towards something, there's A, there's a lot more motivation there, and B, there is a stopping point. It's not just like I'm going to be on this treadmill for I don't know how long, right? So that's really interesting. How do you think that someone would get clear on maybe not their financial goals, but just their overall financial vision? Like what do you think is a good way to do that?
Yeah, Lifebook. That, again, my wife and I went to Lifebook in 2014, and I was just a few years out of of my experience, and so that was just the perfect thing. My wife and I have a letter that both my kids know where it's at in my sock drawer, and it's sealed, and it says, if something happens to us, open this letter. P.S. Read our life books. And we're conscious of that now. We weren't always years ago. I didn't feel worthy of having all this detail and all this stuff in my life, but I do now, and I share that with my clients. And I'm clear about my thoughts around all these different areas of my life, around what I want and why I want it, and my vision of these areas of my life, and the strategies to have that in my life. But I'm also clear about celebrating and appreciating along the way too, and not getting stuck in the gap with all of this.
Number one, I love that answer. That was a fantastic answer. Good job. Number
it's
two,
true though. So yeah.
What you said is really interesting though, that you're clear on what you want and why you want it. And a lot of people that haven't gotten clear on their purpose, but they know what they want, when they get clear on their purpose, like I want to make $1 million, and then you find out why, you're like, oh, actually maybe I don't need that. Maybe I just need this and this and this, and then I'm good, right? So having clarity around your purpose, especially in finances, because it is just, there's the concept of like the rat race or whatever it is. It's just like a hamster wheel going and going and going. But if you have a destination, there is light at the end of the tunnel where you can be like, oh, I'm doing all of this work so that this can happen. And it's not I talked to Garrett Gunderson about this, the whole retirement thing. He's like, you keep delaying and deferring until one day, someday, but that one day never comes. If you have a life vision and you know exactly what you're working towards, it does. And it'll probably go, well, maybe not probably, but it may come faster than you even think it does if you really do the hard work, right? Something we talk about a lot on this show is what we call the transformation equation. It's your vision plus your plan multiplied by your action. And most of the time, the reason why it's multiplied by your action is because however much action you take is however much progress you will make, right? So, all of that to say, if you are clear on your financial vision and you have developed a plan, what kind of, well, actually, let me re-say this. If you are clear on your financial vision, say I want to make $1 million in 5 years, what is, I want to keep $1 million in 5 years, because those are two very different things. What is the plan for someone like me, a young guy? I want to make a lot of money. What do you think would be the best plan?
First of all, I would in these books introduce a framework of AIS. So my company is Vault AIS, and you mentioned it in the beginning. AIS is asset investment strategy. It's number one asset, number one investment, number one strategy. Number one asset, we talk about the two balance sheets, the property value balance sheet and the human life value balance sheet. And human life value is the source and creator of all property value. People are assets, things are not. You, the individual, are the number one asset. this building that we're in, these microphones, this studio, these cameras, the computers, they have no value whatsoever until you or another human gives them value. So people are the assets, things are not. So my encouragement to you would be, Justin, to get clear around what your assets are, what your liabilities are on your human life value balance sheet, commit to go to work on those, and see yourself as the problem, but also the solution. Not somebody else, you, the individual. So that's the number one asset. You are the number one asset. And you going to work to believe that you're the number one asset.
Yeah.
And isn't it time for people to believe that they are the asset?
Not
the liability?
I would say so.
100%, especially with these times that we live in, and all this uncertainty in the government and the news media, and I call it this chunky shit. Like it's just right. And they have this agenda where they want you and everybody else to think that they're the solution. They're not. You are. You're the problem. The good news, you're also the solution. Assets and liabilities. So number one asset is you. Number one investment, I would encourage you to get really clear, to gain clarity around what you... So number one investment has two main characteristics. It's control and it's human life value. What you control, what you have human life value in, knowledge, experience, expertise, purpose, and passion, that's the area for you to invest.
Gotcha.
Not when you relinquish control in an area where you have no knowledge, experience, or expertise, or purpose and passion. That's called gambling.
Yep.
So I would have you invest with the framework of what investing is, the way that we define it, and make sure that that resonates with you. To define an investment as something that you control and have knowledge and experience and expertise and purpose and passion. For most people, it's their business or their career that they're in.
Right.
Yet they're in this career, they're in this business that they're not continuing to innovate or learn or grow in. But that's what has and will continue to put the most amount of cash in their pocket. But they don't see that. That's what allows them to fund these retirement accounts and all these other things, but they're not continuing to grow and innovate in their area of expertise. Tony Robbins talks about 4 basic needs of every human. Basic needs that we will fulfill: certainty, uncertainty, significance, and love. It's a basic need we will fulfill. Justin, you will fulfill these basic needs in your life, so be conscious of them. Uncertainty is variety and risk.
Yeah.
You told me earlier before this started that you are able to take on a lot of risk in your life. And I was just screaming in my mind for this to come out in this interview so I could say this to you. I want you to take risk. It's a basic need that you will fulfill. It's a basic need for everyone. Variety, risk, uncertainty. But be clear in the area that you're taking risk. Is it an investment or are you gambling?
Right.
Again, an investment is an area where you have control, knowledge, experience, expertise, purpose, and passion. That's the area to take risk. So number one asset is you. Number one investment is what you control and have knowledge and experience and expertise and purpose and passion. That's your business or your career. Now, could it be crypto for someone? Sure. If they have experience and control in that area. Could it be real estate? Sure. Could it be their own business? Could it be their career? Could it be this or that? Yes, if it has those characteristics. Number one strategy, AIS. Number one strategy, cash that you relinquish control of, where you don't have knowledge, experience, or expertise, keep it guaranteed, protected, and liquid, GPL. So as you're building big business, have big cash reserves that have a guaranteed rate of return, are protected against creditor claims and lawsuits, and liquid to use back into your life as the bank, back into your business, back into your personal life for future money decisions that you're going to make anyway. And so having $1 million in 5 years that you hold on to, if you're following that framework, I believe, based on my own experience, what I've had clients experience, you'll be more fulfilled in life because you'll be in alignment with what a true investment is versus what gambling is. Right. You'll be believing in yourself, and that fulfillment will far outweigh the $1 million, but it'll actually allow you to achieve the $1 million faster and have enjoyment along the way and have it be something that's lasting in your life.
Interesting. So you talked about risk there, right? And a lot of people, there's this like recurring quote in especially finances is higher risk, higher reward, and things like this. I was chatting with Garrett Gunderson, and he basically just completely dispelled that myth. And I assume you probably have a take on this as well.
Yeah.
So why isn't that true?
High risk equals low, or high risk equals high reward. Low risk equals low reward. Is it true? Well, it sounds good, right? I used to believe it years ago. And financial institutions, remember, they have that agenda and they make products and services that meet their agenda. And one of the things that they say is that we hear it all the time, right? It doesn't matter when you lose the money. Mathematically, it has the same effect on your dollars. For example, if you're investing 10 grand a year for 20 years into an investment and it earns this rate of return and it compounds out to $1 million over so many years, whether you lose money the first year, the 5th year, the 10th year, the 15th, or the 20th year, it has the same effect on the bottom line at the end. So mathematically, we can prove that it doesn't matter when you lose the money, it has the same effect on your dollars. Because what they say is, hey, you're young, Justin, you're young. You can afford to take this risk in your life. It's not true. It's not true. And so I would have someone question that thought in their own life. Is it true that you have to do that? Because what if it's possible to take low risk and get a high return?
I think anybody would take that.
Right. And so I ask clients that. And if we can show them how to do that, would they want that? And they always say yes. And so then we go back to AIS, right? If they're investing in themselves as the number one asset, seeing themselves as the solution. If they're investing in their career, their own business, there could be some risk in there, but it's a lower risk and still getting them a higher rate of return.
Right. And it's not just gambling or speculation, because it's your business or your career. You have, for lack of a better term, skin in the game, right? It's like, I think that a lot of people, like, just take my dad for example. When he first talked to Garrett looked at his finances and he was like, "John, you have all this money in the stock market. You don't know shit about stocks, dude. What are you doing?" And he looked around our house, and my dad's a big art guy, and he's got a bunch of beautiful pieces of art. And he's like, "Dude, you invest in art. Like, this is what you already do this. Why are you in stocks?" And my dad was like, he said something along the lines of, "Well, art isn't a big boy investment. Like, it can't show up on like my balance sheet or whatever." And Garrett was like, "Dude, don't be foolish. Take all this money out of here and invest it in art, and I guarantee you're going to get a higher rate of return later."
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened, right?
Nice.
And it's, it should be sort of common sense to be, I invest in what I know, what I love, and what I, use, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason it's not. People are like, there's this sort of like standard operating procedure for these financial institutions. Like you said, they sell you these tools and these things, and they go, well, high risk, high reward. You got to open up a 401k and a Roth IRA, and you just put a bunch of money into it, and then you leave it there until you're 65, and then you can enjoy your money or something like this. So is the reason why they do that so that they can move around our money with fractional reserve banking?
Yeah, they make money on our money. But I want to go a little bit deeper on the stock market. She brought it up. So someone owns their own business. They're investing in themselves. They're investing in people, and they're investing in systems and processes and marketing and their own business, right? And that's what has and will continue to put the most amount of cash in their pocket. It's their number one investment.
Yep.
They control it. They have knowledge, experience, expertise, purpose, and passion in that area. Yet they take money from their business and they go put it in the stock market, which is somebody else's business, not their own business. Because they think, oh, it's this big boy investment. I have to do this because they're sold this from the financial institutions. But it's somebody else's business, not their own business. At a deep core fundamental level, they're saying, I value their business more than my own.
Yeah,
that's messed up.
The example that Garrett gave was like, would the Apple CEO ever go, well, we're going to diversify and buy some Microsoft stock? Exactly. No, like that's ridiculous. So why are people, especially business owners, going, well, I know I own this business and I love this business and I'm passionate about it, but I'm going to, take some money off the table and put it in, some weird semiconductor manufacturer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It seems foolish, doesn't it?
It's about their self-worth. This book, What We're Worth, they have a lower sense of self-worth in their own life. They've stopped doing the work. They've settled. And they haven't just settled in their business. They've settled in their marriage.
Yep.
They've settled in the way they take care of their body. They've settled in their spirituality. They've settled in the way they parent their kids. It's how they do one area is how they do every other area. I know this because of my own life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Exactly.
That's really interesting how people get so content and contentment and fulfillment kind of look the same on the outside. It's like, oh yeah, I'm fine where I am. But on the inside, it's so different because one of them, you're like, I'm the happiest ever. I could stay here forever and I'll be A-okay. And the other one's like, well, I don't really love where I'm at, but if I try to do anything, I could fall a little bit on the totem pole or whatever it is. And it may take a little bit of time and effort and energy. If someone watching this is more content than they are purposeful or passionate or, very fulfilled, what do you think the sort of inoculation or the cure to that like weird complacency is?
Mm-hmm. I this ring I'm wearing on my finger here is symbolic from a course that I went through that I still participate in called Wake Up Warrior. And Garrett White is a good friend of mine. He's a client. Garrett Gunderson introduced me to Garrett White years ago, and he created Wake Up Warrior, and he teaches a framework of living a challenge-based life, continuing to challenge ourselves. In Warrior, they call it body, being, balance, and business. Body, physically, the way we challenge ourselves physically. Being is our spirituality. Balance is our relationship for me, my wife, and kids, and other people in my life. And then business, continuing to challenge ourselves. Because when we're challenging ourselves, when we're striving towards something, we're fulfilled, we're activated, we're learning, we're growing. It's exciting, it's fun. Versus when we're not. So for that individual, is it working or not working? And I would encourage them to take some sort of a course to find out, to challenge themselves, do something to challenge themselves in some way. Growing up in the motorcycle industry, riding dirt bikes all these years, in 2014, I remember being down in the beaches of California, Laguna Beach down there, sitting there journaling with Wake Up Warrior. And I was trying to think of a next challenge for myself. And I said, I want to own an off-road race team. I had no idea what that would take. I just knew that it was part of my life. And I loved off-road motorsports and dirt bikes and different things. And a year and a half later, next thing you know, my son and I had this car built and we're racing off-road together. And then a couple of years after that, I'm putting clients in the car and we're racing off-road. And next thing you know, we're winning and we're getting sponsorships. And next thing you know, we're incorporating the company. And then next thing you know, we got this off-road race team. And we won 3 overall championships in a row.
Whoa.
Is what it developed into. And it was an absolute blast. And it challenged me. And because I was challenged in that area, I had to make sure I was on point in my relationship with my wife and my kids. And business was doing a certain level of production to be able to, make sure all this happened over here with the race team. And it just, physically had and mentally had to be at a certain point. So it just elevated everything. So I definitely succumbed to continuing to challenge myself in all areas of life. Because again, when I do that, I'm fulfilled and I create the most for those around me.
That was a killer answer. It reminds me of dude, do you know who Ryan Holiday is?
No.
He's like this stoic philosopher guy, and he wrote a book called the obstacle is the way. Right? And it's exactly what you just said. Find things that challenge you and go that way. Because you'll learn a bunch of stuff. You'll have a super fun time, and it'll keep you on your toes. You'll need to like really be operating at a high level.
Yeah.
What you just said is super interesting. You're journaling at Laguna Beach, and you go, I want an off-road racing team.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
I know why, because it sounds fun, but I don't know how. But I'm gonna get it. That's a lot of people. I should say for a lot of people, getting clear on their vision is it happens pretty fast, right? You go, oh, well, I want this. Yeah. Boom, done.
Yeah.
The planning part is hard for a lot of people. And for, I assume for you, the plan was kind of, we'll make it as we go, right? I don't know how to do an off-road racing team, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. But right? I know this person, that person, they know this person, that person.
There you go. So take the off-road racing example, I suppose. You knew a lot of people in the industry, and talking to them, maybe getting mentorship or guidance from them, supercharges this process and really closes the gap between your vision and your reality, right?
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have had those people, how long do you think it would have taken you to get there, or do you think you ever would have gotten there, winning 3 overall championships?
It was definitely about the relationships, 100%, and talking to this person that knew this person. That's why I said that a minute ago. This person knew that person, and then they knew this person, and then it was that person that actually worked with me individually to make this a reality.
Yeah, it's I think Garrett calls this relationship capital, right? And it's like I heard that initially, and I was like, oh, I see what's going on. We just came from Genius Network, Joe Polish's basically relationship network. Yeah. And people pay him a lot of money to go in there. Yeah. And I didn't really like when my dad was in that network all of those years ago. I was like 8 or 9. I was like, you're paying to be friends with this guy? That's a little, because I didn't understand it. And now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, oh yeah. Like I'd pay so much money to get into, like, just getting into rooms with these people. You can hear one sentence that opens your entire, it broadens your entire horizon and changes your whole perspective on a business, a relationship, or anything. Or like you said, you meet someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone that can help you, or something like this.
Yeah. And people that live this abundant life, that are doing this for themselves, they want to help the next person that comes to them and asks for it, because that's how they got it for themselves. And they want to give back. Abundant people want to give to other abundant people. Yep. And so you start fostering that in your own life, and then you attract that and find other people around you. And it's this synergy that takes off. But I had this thought earlier too, when you're asking about the person that maybe, they're not sure what to do, or they feel stuck or whatever. It's not just the race team, but like that's a big example in my life. But it's like when I was dating my wife and I just celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But we were separated in 2010 because I wasn't healthy to be around. One of my mindsets and stories that I was telling myself also during that time when we separated, not only the financial stuff that I was going through and not healthy to be around, but I also had this premise, this belief, and I hadn't questioned it yet in my life, but it was, hey, after 15 years of being married, I'll know everything about Wendy. She'll know everything about me. We'll never fight again. We'll never disagree. We'll never collide. Well, 15 years came and went, and we were still colliding. I'm like, maybe she's not the one. And when I said maybe she's not the one, I had 1 foot out and 1 foot in. And so I challenged that thought and that belief, and I changed my story to, I'm going to date my wife the rest of my life. And so you look at the characteristics of when you're first dating someone, man, you're all in. Our son, he's 25 and he's dating. He had a date just this last weekend, and he's preparing, and he's executing all these things. He's putting a lot of thought and effort into it. When you go to school and you're studying and you're creating your own business, there's a lot of thought and effort and energy and excitement and creativity going into it. Just like in a relationship when it's new. Don't ever stop that. Yeah. Don't ever stop that. Those are the characteristics and building blocks for the rest of our life. Commit to be a lifelong learner, because again, it fulfills us the most and creates the most for those around us. So why would we ever stop that?
I love what you just said. Commit to being a lifelong learner. I love this quote that goes, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that education ends when you get out of university or you get out of school. That's when your real education starts, right? And, for you, selling phones in college and making, 20, which is now 80 grand a month, couldn't even imagine. That's in college. You're going to class and you're like, I don't even know if I need this, man. Did you ever end up graduating from college?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because you're like, I'm making a ridiculous amount of money for someone my age, just a ridiculous amount of money in general. And let's talk a little bit about college, because we were just at a networking event, and this guy who used to be some sort of like advisor or something for Pepperdine University said that the cost of our college's tuition has gone up, and it seems like the value of it has either stayed flat or even gone down a little bit. Why do you think people still pay for colleges like this, assuming that they're not going into, STEM? Because I want my open heart surgeon to have a diploma, right? But anything else, why do you think people are going to school for writing or entrepreneurship or things like this?
Because of that agenda that's being pushed out there, and them not getting clear around what they really want. And they think, well, there's only one way to eat an apple, so I'm going to do it this way. So maybe it's passed down in their family. Maybe it's societal pressures that they feel. But for me, and what I've seen the most, is it's a lack of clarity around what they really want. Does college have a purpose, like a degree, like a heart surgeon? For sure. An attorney, a CPA, something that requires that designation. If that's what someone wants, yeah, great, go do that. Accomplish that in your life. But if not, go do a bunch of other things besides wasting money there. Go do an internship or an externship, or travel to Europe, or do this or do that, or start a small business, do something to gain some life experience first, and then allow that to help you find your specialty. Our son is right there right now. He's 25, and he doesn't have formal college education, but he has a lot of life experience, and he's done internships and externships. He's interning with me right now and learning the financial services industry to see if this is really what he wants to do in his life. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems a little interesting that parents will literally push their kids out to college when they don't even know what they're going to do, and basically say, go spend, 100 grand of my money and figure it out. It's like, why don't you put that money into an account and say, go travel and do what, like, go gain life experience. Like you said, go travel to Europe, or go do an internship, or you start your own business or something like this. It almost seems counterproductive to say, hey, go spend my money and figure out what you're doing while you're learning things that won't necessarily impact your later, career or even your life. It seems completely counterproductive to me.
Yeah. So Lifebook in 2014 helped me gain the clarity around, to an even greater degree, around parenting. And one of the things that I took from that I continue to have in my life with our family, is teaching our kids through adventurous activities. There's a difference when we go out and have an activity, and there's a complete difference when it's adventurous, when there's a little bit of risk associated with it. And not risk where someone's going to die, but like it's making my ass pucker a little bit that we're going to do this. And I want them to feel that, because then they get connected and they're not on their phone and they're focused. Mm-hmm. And it's in that focus that we can have an intimate connection and experience together. That, man, that's the life that I love to live.
I like that a lot, man. I enjoy the idea of adventurous activities creating more connection than just, we're going to have a family dinner and everybody sits on their phones. Or even we're not going to have a family dinner, because I was talking with Alex Mandosian, and he was saying, I make it a practice to have at least 2 or 3 family dinners a night. And if my grandma heard me saying that, she would roll over in her grave and be like, it's not every night. What are we doing here? And I'm not sure, it's probably just technology and how our culture shifted, but I'm not sure why this is. We don't really value human to human connection much anymore. And it seems like with the rise of AI and all this technology and stuff, that's going to come back the same way that like when streaming happened to music, you didn't have to buy CDs anymore, but you wanted to go to concerts more and you wanted to buy vinyls more and things like this because you wanted the actual connection and the experience of like physical music as opposed to just pulling out your magic iPhone box and playing whatever song is there. I think we're going to eventually sort of swing the pendulum back to things like this, in-person chatting, stuff like this.
It creates an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's an opportunity that you can't really get if you're just on the other end of a phone. I mean, I guess you could, but it's like, it's not as personable and it's not really, it's not an experience. An experience is so important because like we were saying, you can remember experiences and they become real to your brain. You know what I mean? I can remember something that makes me feel happy, sad, nervous, embarrassed, or whatever, and I feel that emotion immediately. It's very interesting. But a question that I was going to ask you was, who has inspired your career, your life, and just what you have accomplished the most and why?
The first person that's coming to my mind is my father. And I didn't have a real close relationship with my dad. He died in 2014. My wife, Wendy, and I were actually flying back from Lifebook, February of 2014 in Chicago. And we landed at Salt Lake City Airport. And when we turned our phones on to then wait for our flight to commute back here to St. George, Southern Utah, my phone was blown up and going crazy because my sister was trying to get a hold of me, letting me know that my father had died the night before. My father taught me the value of hard work and the fulfillment that we can gain in our life by creating and exchanging with others. So I would put him up there at the top in that area, in that category. Garrett Gunderson has become not only a business partner of mine, but a close friend and a mentor in many ways in my life also because he lives life at a really big level. Yeah. And he's abundant. And he seeks to give first before getting. And it's just a great example. My wife and I have been fortunate to travel with he and his wife, Carrie, around the world. In fact, we were just on the phone this last weekend planning our next trip. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? What experience do we want to have together? So living life at a really big, abundant level, he's been really inspiring in my life that way. Tony Robbins has been a big influence in my life. I mentioned the 4 basic needs of every human, and living life at a really big level too. And then I have some spiritual leaders like Buddha and Jesus Christ that I believe their consciousness levels of that I've incorporated into my own life have been, life-saving for me, being present. I remember reading this book on my first book on Buddhism over 10 years ago. And there's a character in the book named Siddhartha, and he's sitting underneath a tree with Buddha. And he says to Buddha, "Hey, Buddha, before you die, you haven't said where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going." And Buddha says, "I don't know, but there's many religions that claim they know, and then they fight with each other." And then he said this is what I know, and I'll never run out of this. And that just hit me at a really deep core level of being present and being present with each individual that I'm in front of, because I'll never run out of that. And it's real. And so just being present in that moment. So that was really impactful for me also.
Wow. That was magical. The, being present is incredibly important, if not paramount, right? Because if you're not in the present, where are you? Like, what are you doing, right? I was chatting with, I can't remember who it was, But oh no, yeah, it was Dr. Donnie Warden. I've told you about her before, and I was explaining to her. I forget where I've heard this quote, but it was anxiety is in the future and depression is in the past. If you live right now in the present, everything's kind of just fine, right? Unless you're in some sort of existential danger or you feel dread or something like this. But it's like, if you're just here and you kind of hang out, like person to person, you never really run out of that. Like the future as a concept does exist, but we're never going to get to tomorrow. It's just going to become today. You know what I mean? And for a lot of people, that idea of like there is only today and it is only what you do right now that matters. It's hard for them to sort of stomach these really big goals that they have. Like you said, Garrett lives very big and he's super fulfilled and very abundant. For someone trying to get to a state of abundance or fulfillment and they have a hard time sort of stomaching this big massive goal, what sort of, I guess, framework or methodology would you recommend to pull that down into today? What do I do right now? What do I do today?
Yeah. What's the first thing I know that I can do to take a step in that direction, as simple as it may be? Just the first next thing that I can do. And don't discount at all something that may seem simple or trivial. It's taking that first step that then allows us to take the second step. And when we take the second step, we can take a third, a fourth, a fifth, and then it's in that sixth step that we take that it all of a sudden opens up something else that we wouldn't have seen had we not taken that first step.
Right.
And so just whatever that next thing is, as simple as it may be, take that step. And if we're just like ultimately stuck and we just can't seem to get unstuck for whatever reason, have a conversation with someone. Ask them what they think may be that next step if we can't see it ourselves. And I've done that many times in my own life, and I pay for mentorship, I pay for coaching, and I love coaching and helping others in those areas too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a Buddha quote, but I'm not 100% sure. It's like the journey of 10,000 steps begins with just one, or something like this.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely true, because if you don't do these little tiny things that build up into I read this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller, and it basically just explained that your life is a sequence of dominoes, and if you knock down the little one and it knocks down a slightly bigger one and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, you can basically move mountains by the end of whatever sort of time frame it is.
Yeah.
And it was there's this like diagram that said if you have a line of dominoes and each one is 1.5 times bigger than the last one. So it's the first one is 2 inches tall, the second one is 3 inches tall, the next one is like 4.5 or whatever it is, and it keeps going like that. On the, I think 60th one or something like this, you would have a bridge to the moon or something like that.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay, I kind of see what that means now, and it's kind of like a metaphor or a proxy for repetitive, consistent action. Like, you wake up and you go to the gym every day, right? You wake up and you eat healthy every day. You wake up and you hang out with your wife every day. That compounds, and if you miss even a day or a week, you not only feel it, but it shows up. Yeah. You're like, well, I didn't do the hard thing this morning, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. I don't know if I have it in me, right? It's really, really interesting. But here's another question that we love to ask all of our guests, and it's, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
I immediately think of my 5-year-old self. I would tell my 5-year-old self to don't ever stop dreaming. I would tell my 5-year-old self to continue to believe in himself. I've done so much work from my childhood and traumas and all sorts of stuff in my life. But my younger self I would tell him that it's going to be okay. You have an amazing life. You're going to live this amazing big life and help so many other people. And dream big and know that you are worthy and going to be and are a powerful force in this world, and that you have a lot to offer a lot of people. And don't ever let that get shut down by anyone or anything else around you. And to stay focused in that area.
I love that, man. Where can our viewers learn more about you, your mission, buy these books, things like this?
Yeah, thank you. Vault AIS, VAULT AIS for assetinvestmentstrategy.com. VaultAIS.com would be the best place. Yeah.
Cool. And they can buy the books there?
Yeah, you can actually just go on and just pay for the shipping, and we'll send you both the books for free.
There we go. Yeah. Shipping for free. Come on now. Or I guess pay for the books for free, and then they'll ship it to you. Do that right now. Link is in the show notes.
Yeah.
Michael Isom, thank you so much for your time, man.
You're welcome,
been great.